Can you remind me if you'll be so kind? Staring out into space, asking God to hear my case. Trying to think of all things past. How long will my memory last? With purple angel, purple angel, purple angel, you're next to me.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Alzheimer's Speaks Radio. This is your host, Lori LeBay, and founder of Alzheimer's Speaks. For those of you that are new to our show, I always like to just give you a little background on who the heck we are. And bottom line, Alzheimer's Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. And we believe that by joining forces and sharing knowledge and having these everyday conversations about life with dementia, like we do here on Alzheimer's Speaks Radio, that we're going to be able to help remove the stigmas attached to memory loss and help those that are diagnosed continue to live with purpose along with their care partners. Together, we think that's the only way we're going to have a really true understanding of the needs that people in our community have. At our core, we also believe that collaboration is the only way we're going to win this battle against dementia, and I know it's working, thanks to all of you and your likes and your clicks and your shares. You see, taking those few seconds to like if it's our radio show, if it's our webinars, if it's a YouTube channel, a blog, our resource directory, whatever it might be, you are sharing information with your sphere of influence. So sharing it with your LinkedIn colleagues, your Twitter tribes, your Facebook friends, your Pinterest peeps, just pushes more and more information out there to people in need. And we all know people that are in our sphere of influence but aren't ready to talk about dementia. They may not have even realized what has hit them yet or hit their family or friends. But the more information we can have out there, the easier it's going to be for them to go ahead and grab a hold. And so again, I just want to thank you for taking that time to share our content and to connect people to resources like we're going to have today. In doing so, you got us named the #1 influencer online for Alzheimer's, according to ShareCare and Dr. Oz. So that was quite a big honor for us. So again, thank you for helping with that. I also want to let people know that here on Alzheimer's Speaks Radio, we like to talk to everybody. So if you're listening to the show and you have dementia, or maybe your loved one has dementia, maybe you're a professional, a researcher, an advocate, somebody out there who's written a book, maybe a song, maybe a play, a film, we want to hear from you, because it takes all of us to change our dementia care culture. And that's what it's all about. That's what we're all about here, is just lifting everyone's voices and trying to get information into enough people's hands to make a difference and to shift things from crisis to comfort. I'd like to give a shout out before I introduce our guest today to the Call Alert Center, which is a wonderful, wonderful technology that is very inexpensive to use, but you can register your loved one if you think they might go missing. And it's good for a year. If they would, you call them within 10 minutes. There's a flyer out. They'll push it out to social media, as can you. They'll work with the police department. It's pretty fantastic. And then people are always asking me about memory cafes and how do they find them. There's a great resource on our mothership, alzheimersspeaks.com. Just go to the tab that says Initiatives and Projects and scroll down till you see Memory and Alzheimer's Cafes. You'll be able to read a little bit about their history, and then you'll see a big kind of pink-purple icon that says Memory Cafe Directory, which actually isn't ours. It's provided by Calendar Cards, and they have it's the easiest way that I have found out there to search for a memory cafe. And if you have one that you want it registered, there's no cost to that either. So let me introduce our guest today. Our title is Dementia RAW, and it's training that's unscripted, unconventional, and unapologetic. And I love that title. We all know that caring for somebody with dementia or other types of brain conditions can be really a unique set of challenges. And Tami Neumann and Cathy Braxton of Silver Dawn Training Institute equip professionals and loved ones with a new way to communicate with these individuals. They use empathy and improv in this new method called Dementia RAW. So welcome, Tami. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for having us on.
Great.
We're excited to be here.
Wonderful. And Cathy, thank you for being with us as well. We really appreciate you taking the time.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
Well, one of the questions I always like to ask our guests, kind of before we get into the meat of the matter, is have you, and I'm going to start this with Tami, have you experienced dementia in your own family or your own circle of friends?
You know, that's an interesting question, and I get asked that all the time. I have actually been very fortunate that within my sphere of family and friends, we have not experienced dementia. I have worked in the industry for, I used to say over 10 years, but I have to now say over 20 years. So, you know, in my day-to-day life in this industry, I've met the challenges of working with people with dementia and worked with families and trying to help them to understand, you know, different ways to communicate with the person that they love. So, you know, through that, you know, those people, I would say, have become friends and family to me.
Okay, great. Cathy, how about you? Do you have any history in your own family or circle of friends?
I do, actually. I have a grandmother who is still alive. She just turned 92, who has dementia. I had a grandfather who passed away from dementia, and I myself suffer from memory loss due to traumatic brain injury. So when Tami says she doesn't know anybody in her wide circle of friends and family, she's actually sitting next to her best friend who's got it herself.
Well, apparently she forgot. So,
that's right.
It happens. It happens to all of us. Or maybe that's just that denial thing we hear so much about too, you know. You just don't know. Interesting. I'd like to talk to you about how did you guys come up with using the idea of improv? I love this concept. And Cathy, I'm going to throw this out to you first.
Well, actually, I'm going to lob that back to Tami because she's the one that has a great answer to this question.
Okay.
Sure. Don't you love how we're just going to lob this back and forth? We're just going to play tennis the whole entire time while we do this.
That's perfect.
What happened is a few years ago, probably about almost 4 years ago now, my son started to take improv classes, and my intention for that was here I had this young guy that was really smart with humor, but maybe knew a little bit too much for his age, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to figure out how could I rein that in, and so I decided to. A friend introduced us to someone. And he started taking improv classes. And as I was sitting in the improv classes, just watching him and his classmates, I started to see how these rules could really help us kind of look at communicating with a person with dementia in a very new perspective that is a really easy way for people to grasp onto these concepts. So really it started with him going into improv classes, and soon after I started taking improv, and I've been taking it for almost 2 years now. And every day that I take a class, I'm always saying, oh my gosh, here's this other way that we can really help people to understand dementia and communicating with a person with dementia.
Well, that's wonderful. It's amazing how we can connect on so many things that are using so many methods that are around us on a day-to-day basis, but we kind of fall back on old patterns, and you're kind of breaking through walls with that. So I love that concept.
Thank you.
You know, Cathy, when Tami started this, what did you think originally?
When she brought it to my attention and said, I have this great idea, it was like a light bulb went off over both of our heads. It was like, yeah, absolutely. This makes perfect sense. And as I'm under the tutelage of Tami with my improv lessons, and I would say she's a great teacher, by the way. With learning the rules of improv myself, watching her and my son taking improv as well, the application is amazing. It's simplistic. It's easy to remember. It's easy to apply. And it's amazing how it really it rejuvenates a connection for people. And it just puts in this very supportive way of speaking and understanding each other that I don't know of any other dementia communication program that has that.
Okay, wonderful. One of the things I was going to ask, and I'll go back to Tami, what differentiates your workshops from others? Can you give us more specifics? Are there a lot of improv workshops around the country that deal with dementia? Or are you comparing yourself just to improv in general?
That's a great question. I never really actually thought about it that way. There really aren't. I know that there's one other person that is using improv a little bit in training. But one of the things that we do is we really kind of come at this from a little bit of a different angle. And I'm actually going to lob this back to Cathy in just a moment, because we take this concept of improv. So we work with people and we talk about improv, but we also feel that there's a certain foundation that needs to be shared before we get into that improv piece, and it's empathy. And what we have figured out over the past 2 years is that the 4 pillars of empathy and the 4 rules that we utilize in this program, it's so hard to really kind of say this is the foundational piece where this is, because they intermesh and interweave so incredibly well. So I think what we do is we teach people about empathy, because when we get to one of the rules in improv, it's so important for us to be in agreement with someone. And there's many ways we can be in agreement with a person. And I think by utilizing those pillars of empathy, we're able to get there and get there much easier by understanding these concepts. What would you say, Cathy?
I would absolutely agree. I think that they intertwine so well, these 4 rules of improv and the 4 pillars, that I can't tell them apart sometimes. And I can't understand one anymore without applying another. Right. So they don't exist for me anymore as a separate entity. They are in one. And I think that that's what differentiates our coursework from everybody else's, is that we utilize this concept of empathy. We challenge people to think about things from a new perspective. We ask people to practice staying out of judgment. We look at the concept of trying to understand somebody through body language and then communicating understanding. And those 4 pillars really tie in so well with the rules as we apply them through improv. And then having the participants get up and practice this, I think, is what really hits the nail on the head and drives the concepts home.
Yeah, and if you don't mind me interjecting real quickly, I think the other thing that, we feel that helps kind of set us apart a little bit as well has to do with the concept of fun and the concept of it being a safe space. So we feel that when training is fun, it sticks, it stays with you. So there's fun. We're constantly doing things with the group. We're constantly doing some sort of activity with the group. And because of that fun, I think people go out and say, okay, I can remember these rules. I can remember these concepts. The other thing is that we feel very strongly that this is when you step into that door to be in our workshop. And we may bring you up front to go to understand the concepts, work through the concepts. It is a safe place. We will not judge you. We will not shame you. None of that. That it's a place where we can work on this together, because it is a new concept. It is something that we're asking you to do slightly differently than what you've learned before. But we always talk about being able to tap out to either Cathy or myself, that we can guide you through those concepts. We never want you to feel ashamed or judged, because when you go back to that facility or you go back to your loved one, then you're not going to want to use those tools if you're not in a safe place to be able to learn those concepts. Right.
Well, right. I like that. Can you guys go over again, just a little slower, what your pillars are again?
So the pillars of empathy are perspective taking, mm-hmm. staying out of judgment, mm-hmm. recognizing emotion, thank you, and then communicating that you understand that emotion.
Okay.
So those are the pillars of empathy, and
Okay.
that's typically what we teach first. And we do all sorts of, one of the things that we really like to do, actually, we love doing this, is we love helping people to take on a new perspective. So whether it's, through some dementia challenges that we have through blogs, that type of thing. And I think that's where we lay that foundation with the pillars of empathy.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and like you said, those two, they just go so hand in hand, that empathy and the improv. And the importance of fun, I think, is critical. So many people think, this is serious stuff. You can't have fun. And yet fun is what everyone is missing in their lives.
Yeah.
And it's,
oh my goodness.
The first thing that everybody says that they want. So, to get them back in that spot that, life is really just a comedy of errors, if we're honest about it.
Yeah.
And if we can learn from our failures and not look at them as failures and not, judge them negatively, but as a mode of progress. And I think that that's a big mistake we make in society at large, is making people feel bad for trying something new, trying to improve. And
we do. Yeah, that's very true. That's one of the things that we felt very strongly about when we started putting this program together was two things. We wanted to make sure people had tools that they could utilize right away. Tami and I had been to enough conferences, workshops, courses, classes, webinars, you name it, where we've listened, sat, taken notes, walked away and thought, now I don't know what I can use to apply. I really don't have anything I can put in place right away.
Mm-hmm.
So we felt that was very important, was that the concepts were easy enough and able to access immediately, so you could walk out of the room and start applying them right away. We've actually had people leave the workshop in a nursing home that it was being presented in, use it in the bathroom with a resident they ran into, and come back in and tell us, oh my God, this worked so awesome, I just used it. So that's that's one of our goals, is to make sure people can just glob onto this and start applying it right away. Otherwise, it's not, it's not useful to the caregiver or the caretaker. The other thing we feel really strongly about, like you said, is when it's a supportive environment, our biggest goal is to make sure everybody walks out of there with a sense of confidence that they can do this. And so in that supportive environment where we let the participant tap out or turn to us for help, or we whisper in their ear and kind of coach them along without any shame, then they walk away always getting a high five. They're always getting, clapping from the audience, which just really boosts their confidence, and then it's going to encourage them to use it the minute they walk out the door.
Yeah, very, very true. I totally agree with that. And I think that the concept of keeping it simple, when it's complicated, it just falls apart, especially when people are in crisis, or schedules and routines are changing all the time. It's difficult to keep things in step and in order, and then it's kind of like a diet. Then they give up, and it's just it's too strict, So it's got to be a little bit more fluid and allow for real life to happen. So that's wonderful, wonderful news to hear. One of the things you talk about is your work in Blue Island, Illinois, kind of shaped your goals for Dementia RAW. Cathy, can you give us a little background, or are you going to flip it over to Tami on me again?
No, I'll take a little bit, but we're attached at the hip as well. So unfortunately, what you hear from me, we'll lob back and forth. Yeah, we started in Blue Island, and we took on the city at large and trained all of the paramedics, fire, police, and the building department. We had 100% compliance. It was wonderful. They really helped us to shape what our training became. And I think the two big important things that we learned in Blue Island with this population that we were training is, number one, the information has to be applicable and accessible to anybody, regardless of how much information they have on the disease process. Because we learned rather quickly that first responders, fire, police, medic, they do not have any formal training on dementia or dementia care. They don't receive that. That's not part of their regimen. And so we needed to make the training something they could digest rather easily. So we realized that they were not special in that there are caregivers all over, that this is their first time doing this, that they've never read a book, cracked open a magazine or anything on any of the ideas or concepts on this, and they're taking it on head on. So our training needs to be able to meet them right where they are. The other thing we found with our first responders is because their job is such that they're not given time to run back to the police station or call back to dispatch and get a history or a background on perhaps someone they find on the street or a home check that they have to go do. The tools have to be easy and remembered and in their back pocket right away. So just like a caregiver, when you said, when things get too complicated, all the steps start to fall away. And like a diet, we just throw up our hands and say, forget it, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. But when the steps are easy, there's 4 rules of improv, 4 rules of empathy, they mesh together and bam, we help you really just, it all intertwines into one and it's very accessible. So we felt that learning that from that population in the city really helped shape what our training is now.
Okay. Can you tell our audience what the 4 rules of improv are?
I'd be happy to do that. Absolutely. So we start off when we talk about something that's called relinquish your agenda. And what that really means is that we all have some sort of an agenda. And when you see 2 people on stage doing improv, if one of them has an agenda, most likely what's going to happen is that scene's going to fall apart. And when we talk to caregivers about this concept of relinquishing your agenda, we're really looking at how does your agenda that you have for the day, maybe it's a list of tasks or maybe it's you wanting to be right or give advice. There's many agendas out there. How is that agenda that's running through your head affecting the way that you're communicating and spending time with that person with dementia? Is it getting in the way? Are you not able to build a bridge to communicate, or are you building a wall in between the 2 of you? So that's our first rule. So our second rule is something that we call make your partner look good, and this is really kind of the golden rule of improv. We always think that when we see 2 people on the stage doing improv, we always think that the goal of improv is to drop that funny line where everybody's bending over, peeing their pants laughing, right? So that's actually not the goal of it. The goal is really that I am making my partner look good. So we talk about the person with dementia being that partner on stage with you, that wherever they're at, that you have to figure out how to make them look good. And that goes further, and we'll talk about that at some point in time. And then, of course, anybody that's ever taken an improv class learns these 2 words. And we always say, what are the 2 words that you should remember? If you remember nothing about us doing a class, if you come to a 4-hour workshop or a 1-hour presentation, if you only take away 2 words, these are the 2 words you need to take away. And that is the concept of yes and. So yes means simply to be in agreement, and means to add something to it, really simply. And then our fourth rule is called the gifts. And we're always consistently looking at what gifts that person with dementia is giving us. Are they giving a gift in conversation that we can utilize? Are they giving a gift in their body language? What is that gift that they're giving us? Are they giving a gift of an emotion that we're able to utilize in moving that communication piece forward? So simply, that's what the 4 rules are. Okay.
Well, sounds good. You mentioned talking about making your partner look good. Can you give like a couple of examples with that? Because I think most of us that watch improv, we don't go that deep. We're not analyzing those pieces.
Right.
We're just make me laugh, And so can you give us a couple of examples, or could you play something up between the 2 of you right now and then tell us what you did and why you did it?
Sure. So we're going to do something that has nothing to do with dementia at the moment. And I'm going to make a statement to Cathy, and she's going to respond to this concept, to what I say to her. Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Braxton, thank you so much for getting me in your paleontology class. I love this class.
I am so glad you joined our class, and I'm hoping that you read my book, Short Arms, Quick Death.
About T-Rex.
Absolutely,
Oh, my
absolutely.
gosh.
So I'm so glad you joined the class, and what I would love for you to do is sit in the front row on our first day, because I'm going to bring in a fossil of a T-Rex, and I want to make sure you get a close-up view of that. Thank you so much for joining.
Awesome. Okay, so you probably want to know what the gifts are in that whole scene that we did there. So we could, if I wanted to, we could have started out the scene and I could have said, "Hey, Cathy."
Hey.
And now we've got this nice little dead air improv scene of, "Hey, ho, hi," nothing's happening. Refund. I want my $25 back now, right? My wasted hour of watching improv, I want that back.
Right.
So what it talks about when doing an improv scene, the things that I gave Cathy, I gave her a whole bunch of gifts. I gave her a lot of stuff to work with. I called her doctor. I said thank you for getting me. Oh, I called you professor, didn't I?
You called me Dr. Braxton.
I called her Dr. Braxton. Then I went a little bit further and said thank you for getting me into your paleontology class. So I gave her all these little things, these little clues along the way of things that she could use to lob back to me. So she knows she's a professor. She's a professor of dinosaurs and what she can do with that. So then she gave me back some other things that I was able to use.
So one of the ways that I made my partner look good, there's a couple things I did there. I didn't deny what she was saying to me. I did not deny the role she gave me. I went right along with it, which is where that yes and piece comes in. When you yes and someone, you are being in agreement with their reality at that moment and adding something to it, which does nothing but always make your partner look good every single time. The other thing I did to make my partner look good is I said thank you, which is something we touched on quite a bit in our class, is one of the ways we can make our partners, and that may be the person who has dementia, one of the ways we can make them look good is to stop using the phrase, "I'm sorry," and start using the phrase, "thank you." Because when we say, "I'm sorry," we put all the heavy lifting on the partner in that scene to try to rectify a conversation or make us feel better about their bad day or their bad moment. But that's not their job. And if we're the caregivers, if we're the care partners, our job is to make them look good. And so we can do that by saying thank you and being specifically grateful that they've chosen us to share a moment of their life or share a reminiscing or a memory. So we talk about changing the verbiage up from "I'm sorry" to "thank you" as one of the great ways to make your partner look good. And that goes along too with your coworkers. When you can create an environment in a workplace where you can be specifically grateful to your coworkers when they help you out, you're constantly making them look good, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're apologizing for having a bad day, or we're apologizing because Mr. Johnson and I just aren't getting along today, or we stay in a situation way too long and create some escalation, we are not making anybody look good in that. We're not making ourselves look good. We're not making Mr. Johnson look good because we're just upsetting him. And we're not letting any care partner step in and kind of tap into the situation. That's the language we use. And if we can do that, we keep people out of shame, out of judgment, and we make everybody on the scene look good.
So this sounds like something that would be great in a marriage, working with your kids. I mean, in all kinds of situations to de-escalate.
We talk about tapping out. I mean, we talk about it in a way where people can relate, because we say you've all probably taken an adult time out and locked yourself in the bathroom from your kids.
Mm-hmm.
No one judges you for that. If you call your girlfriend up and say, "I had to just run out of the house and go for a walk," typically the people that support you the most are the ones that go, "Yeah, I had to do that last week. I'm right there with you." There's no judgment involved in needing to tap out of a situation. And we think that should be the same for in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And Cathy does use it with her husband.
I do. Yes.
Well, it's, I can see where it could de-escalate a lot of things and just give people kind of that time to breathe and not take things quite as seriously. Ability to reframe a little bit and stuff. So that's wonderful. You also explained in there kind of the yes concept and putting this culture in the workplace. How would you see that play out in the workplace? Let's say that's not just a memory care unit, but just maybe you're at Best Buy or something, or some Fortune 500 company. How would you see this kind of raw training play out?
I think all those 4 rules, those rules of improv, are really great ways to create a different culture within your workplace, whether it's an assisted living, a nursing home, a Fortune 500 company. I've had the pleasure of working with my improv teacher, Antoine McKay, and helping some companies really kind of look at things in a different way. I think sometimes we need a break. We need to come back with a fresh new attitude. And I think if we can do this from the top down, if we're working in a nursing home, we're talking about the administrator down, and having this and creating this new way of thinking and being. So can we be in agreement and add something to it? Hey, that's a great idea. I'm thinking that if we add X, Y, and Z to it, it'd be even better. So, when we can do that, we can start really developing some creative ideas and some creative things in companies. I think when we are looking at making our partners look good, when we start to do that, we start to create a different way of thinking, a different way of being. And I think especially when we look at nursing homes and assisted livings, memory cares, when we have our administrators and our directors of nursing model the fact that it's okay to tap out of a situation, there's no shame and there's no judgment in it, then it really empowers the rest of the staff to be okay with the fact that, And I draw on my experience. I worked in a memory care community, and I had a gentleman that he didn't like me. We don't know why. I don't know if I looked like his ex-wife. I don't know what it was. But every time he saw me, I set him off. So we realized very quickly that I needed to be tapped out of the situation, and there was other caregivers that he worked really well with. So they were tapped into the situation. But I think sometimes we feel that there's shame or judgment when we're not able to handle every single resident. And I think we have to change that thinking. I think the only way that we're able to do that is to really show that from the top down that, there are times when I'm not as good as someone else is. So it really then turns around and giving pride and confidence to everyone that's working in that community.
Yeah, and again, I think you would really need that top-down mentality. Otherwise, people might think that you're just being sarcastic or whatever, and it could escalate things if there really isn't a true outline of how to use this and why you're using it and understanding that, which could be detrimental. Because they would just add one more layer of dysfunction to a dysfunctional environment to begin with. So I like that idea. I think it makes a lot of sense to use humor and increase empathy. I think that's almost a lost art. People don't even understand what it is anymore because we've gotten so fast paced in the way we live life, and getting people back down to kind of that core essence is really a nice place to be. Cathy, can you tell us about being a certified dementia communication specialist and the training and why that is important? Is that what they walk out of after they've been to the Dementia RAW, or is that a whole nother program?
That is a different program. The Dementia RAW is the foundational program. It's the basic education we encourage prior to becoming a CDCS. And the CDCS program, to become a certified dementia communication specialist, is a program we developed because, just as Tami said, in any organization, to model the behavior of really encouraging empathy and a supportive environment, it's really important to sometimes have a specific person in a facility or a few people in a facility identified as the yes person. And the reason we say it that way is we take that off of the concept of yes and. We feel that there's a lot of anding going on in facility where we see a resident struggling or having an unmet need, and we physically move them around in the facility to try to get them to forget what their need is. But what we miss is the yes part. We don't do a very good job of acknowledging where they are and being in that kind of icky soup with them in the moment. Mm-hmm. Because yesing a situation, acknowledging what the reality is, can be pretty scary, so we tend to avoid it. But when we don't acknowledge where someone is, their need goes unmet and they keep coming back. So it doesn't matter if we take someone and we move them from the elevator and take them to the coffee social or the ice cream parlor, or let's go over here and play bingo. We often see residents being removed physically to another place, but then leaving that activity or that food and coming back out because that need has not been met. And we realize that in facilities there are so many tasks that have to be done on a daily basis that a lot of times the yes job is something that gets brushed under the rug as not being important. So we feel that to create this yes and culture and making all of our partners look good, there needs to be at least one, if not multiple people that are designated as yes people, where their job is to acknowledge where residents are and sit with them in that stew and meet whatever emotional need they have.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because to me that sounds kind of similar with Naomi Feil's validation system, where she talks about you need to acknowledge, where they're at. Would you consider that similar, or am I missing the point here?
That's a good question. I think there's some similarities. I only know some basic points to Naomi Feil's validation therapy. I think the yes part, we're looking at many different ways in being in agreement with someone. But it is true. We often see that someone is just anding someone and forgetting that yes part. I think there's some, we're definitely affirming where someone's at. We're being in agreement to where they might be emotionally. We're being in agreement where they might be physically. We might just be in agreement with them as we're trying to figure out what is going on with them. So I think there are probably some similarities to being in agreement with a person or validating where they're at.
I think what differentiates us is that in our course we encourage that validation, that agreement piece is where the empathy comes. And it's not sympathy. It's not feeling sorry for somebody and telling them that we feel sorry for them, but it's actually tapping into our own empathic feelings and remembering that there's nothing that a person with dementia feels that we haven't felt ourselves. And so it's important to go there emotionally in our heads and then with our hearts. So if someone is saying, this is not my home, I want to go home, what we encourage in our training is that we validate that response with, yeah, I can understand that you don't feel like you're at home. And then we are in agreement with them by using our own verbiage and saying, I've been in the same situation. I was stuck last week somewhere. I desperately wanted to get home. I couldn't wait to shake off those heels and put on some comfy slippers. Man, I so get it when you're just uncomfortable and not where you want to be. So that's where the empathy piece that we bring in really attaches to the yes and being in agreement part that I think differentiates us, because we tell caregivers, we tell the participants, go there emotionally yourself. Don't look at a person with dementia as having feelings that are so foreign that we can't understand them. Mm-hmm. Their feelings and what they're experiencing is exactly something we've had in our lives. We've all felt lost. We've all felt confused. We've all felt like we wanted to go home. So we need to be able to go there in our minds and then share that experience with someone.
Which makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense. I think one of the, things that I found in my journey with my own mom over 30 years was everybody looks at dementia and a person with dementia as being different instead of looking at similarities. And there's so many similarities, and when we look at those differences, it pushes us away. But when we look at our similarities, all of a sudden we've got these common bonds, and, it just lessens pressure and fear, and all that stuff just kind of melts. And
Yes.
I think that's a huge, huge factor that society really, really needs right now. There's, as a whole. And, you look at just the comment of not feeling at home. How many people in our country right now don't feel like this is home anymore, just with what's going on politically? There's so much fear and so much angst. And for a person with dementia to watch the news who still can comprehend some things, that's extremely scary. On top of all just the regular things that come with dementia, now we've added a whole nother flavor with that, and getting people to understand how simple yet how complicated dementia is, but all of life is. And once we realize that, there is no perfect, it really doesn't exist. So why are we chasing it? And let's have some fun, and let's do some improv, and let's troubleshoot this thing the best we can. And one of the fundamentals, as I'm sure you teach, is, a smile, can just melt a ton of things away, and increase comfort. So if we can get people to laugh and feel more relaxed, that's a huge piece of this nonverbal communication, which is most of our communication. And then we wonder, well, why are we so surprised? Or, we all pretty much know, but don't accept the fact that, we many times are the triggers for them. So if we're tense and we're upset, and they're mirroring it back to us, but then we identify it when they give it back to us, and then they're the problem when we really walked in with it.
Right. And we label it a behavior.
Yeah, because it's so much easier pointing the finger, the other direction. So I think, I love this idea of Dementia RAW, because I think life is unscripted. I think it is unconventional, and I don't think we should have to apologize for living life. We're all different. Nobody should have to feel sorry or feel shamed or feel embarrassed. It's life, and we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have things in our life that we don't want at times, but that doesn't make us bad people. That doesn't make us someone should be afraid of. It just means I got another thing to work through, and that's kind of the process of life. Is from the time we're born, we're working through different stages of life, and
that's right.
And I don't know. How you two feel, but I look at dementia and Alzheimer's truly as a gift to teach us new ways. And I love connecting with people like you guys who are finding new ways. I mean, to me, that's just so powerful. It's beyond words, to connect with people trying to make change and trying to help others and lift them up. So thank you so much, both of you, for the work that you're doing. I just love it. How do is this something you take around the country, or how do people get involved with what you're doing?
Yes, absolutely. So, first of all, I just want to say, and I see it in Cathy's face, we were like nodding our heads like crazy in agreement to everything that you were saying, because we're all about changing this perspective.
Don't be yesing and in me. Don't be yesing and in me. I got this down now.
But no, we're so much in agreement with what you said. I mean, it's we feel that it's a breath of fresh air to hear the comments that you're saying. So I just. Yes, I am yes-anding you at the moment. So I'm glad you picked up on that. Good job. You would get a gold star in class.
Oh, so. That makes me feel really good.
But just in regard to the question that you asked, people can go to our website, which is dementiaraw.com, and they'll find some information about where we're going to be next. We have been lucky that we are going to be at 3 of the Alzheimer's Foundation of America, their Concepts in Care this year. We'll be at the New York event in May, the Chicago event in October, and then Indianapolis later in the fall. Additionally, we're actually going to be up in your neck of the woods next week for Leading Age Minnesota.
Oh, cool.
We're presenting on the 8th there, and we're in Colorado later this year as well. So we go anywhere anybody wants us to go. We have the workshop. It's a 4-hour workshop. But then our certification, we're doing this certification in person quarterly, but you can also do the certification online, and we have classes happening constantly for that as well.
Okay. Well, I would love to catch up with you guys if you have any breathing time when you're in town, and maybe go have dinner or something. I'm not going to be able to make the conference because of my schedule, but I might be able to scoot up with you in the evening or something. My daughter's going to be there, so I'll definitely have her go to your session if I can, if I have any control over my kid. But we'll see.
Right. Just yes, Ander. That's all you need to do.
I know. I think she would love something like this. Absolutely love something like this. And she's an activities director.
Nice.
Yeah, and so it would be a wonderful addition to her skill set. So that would be great. So we'll have to talk offline and see if there's a way to hook up. I also have a lot of colleagues out in Colorado that I want to make sure know that you're coming their way, because I think they would really be interested. And you said you're going to be with the Alzheimer's Foundation, was it?
Yes, the Alzheimer's Foundation of America.
Okay.
This is their 15-year anniversary,
cool.
And they're doing Concepts in Care like all across the United States, and we'll be at 3 of their events this year.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, you have to tell Josie hi if you see her.
She's awesome. We will.
So great. Well, like I said, I am so appreciative of you guys taking the time to be with us. And our audience, you can email these ladies at silverdawninfo. That's silverdawninfo@gmail.com, or go to their website, dementiaraw.com. They're also on Twitter as Dementia Raw, and Instagram as Dementia Raw, and Facebook. Aren't they consistent? So look at that.
We're trying. Yep. We're trying.
and I always like to just double check. Is it okay to give out a phone number, or would you prefer that?
Absolutely.
Okay. And the phone number I have for you is 219-649-1732. That's 219-649-1732. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for being with us. Is there any last comment that you have, Cathy?
I just want to agree with you about Alzheimer's and dementias being a gift. We talk about that as well, because we say that, in the neurotypical world, if you say something to someone and you're talking about somebody behind their back and they overhear you, you've pretty much ruined that relationship for the eternity. But if you screw up with somebody with dementia, they have this wonderful ability of loving that if your intention was good, they'll give you a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. Whereas our neighbors and our mother-in-laws and all those...
Our intention wasn't good with them, so...
No, but your intention is good, and you try your best, and you screw up, which we all will. Someone who has dementia will remember the feeling much longer than they'll remember the actual words, which always gives us an opportunity to create more connection later down the road. It's such a forgiving disease in some ways, and that is a wonderful gift to give somebody.
Well, that's very true, because they don't look, like you said, situational and then turn the spigot off. They just live moment to moment, and that's what they're teaching us to do. And I know with my mom, I found that as the disease progressed, she taught me that there were many levels of unconditional love, and in the deepening of the connection, as the skill set went, that unconditional love, really increased. And it's, and when you talk about that, people always shake their head and go, yeah, I see what you mean. These little teeny things that didn't matter before, or I didn't even see before, didn't even recognize, really mean everything compared to what I thought did matter. How about you, Tami?
Yeah.
Any last comments?
I don't know that I do. I think Cathy has summed everything up for us. I know that since I took improv, I live my life in a yes and world, and what it's done for me and the way that I communicate with my 17-year-old son, my 21-year-old daughter, it's helped us tremendously, and I see the power that it has, and we're so thankful to be able to share this with other people.
Well, great. Thank you, ladies. Have a brilliant week, and keep up the wonderful work. Really appreciate you spending time with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
For those of you that are new to Live and Social Network, you might want to check out Rachel Perrin, who is a culinary director for Kowalski's Market. Her and her producer, Adam Lee, have a lot of people in studio that talk about seasonal flavors and favorite foods and different nutritional topics and kind of everything yummy for your tummy. Their show is called What's for Dinner Tonight? And their podcasts only average 10 to 15 minutes per episode, but they're perfect when you're busy and hungry and trying to figure out what's for dinner. You can also go to Kowalskis.com. That's KOWALSKIS for complete menu suggestions. What else do I want to tell you? On Alzheimer's Speaks, all of our shows are archived, so you can go back for years and listen to tons of different shows. We have had recently on a man talking about his personal triumphs, struggles, and passions in living with dementia. We have had a company on talking about how they have proven whole person senior care works. We've had a couple of gals on who are doing research on horses and horse therapy and the powerful lessons of living in an engagement through animals. We've had people talking about travel and making your dreams come true. In fact, we're going to be going on a cruise that we haven't even titled yet, November 11th, which will be a Caribbean cruise that will be dementia and caregiver specific. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. I'll be getting more information as that rolls in. I will be in Sherville, Indiana on February 13th and Mokina, Illinois on the 14th, and then Eloquin, Illinois on the 15th, doing premieres of His Neighbor Phil. So we'd love to see you there. Also on the website, alzheimerspeaks.com, you can listen to the latest dementia chats where people living with dementia give us their thoughts on advocacy, positions, roles, duties, and terms, and how to really put in place a succession plan for smooth transition as the disease progresses. They have just brilliant insights. Also on our blog, you'll see a couple of new videos that were done by 60andMe over in Sweden, and they interviewed me on talking about nostalgia and how that can kind of amplify dementia treatment. We also have one for support groups, and we've got, I think, 3 others coming out as well. So have a blessed week, and we will talk with you all soon. Bye now.
It's time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Hey everybody, Jared Sebesta here, host of Retire Repurposed. Now this podcast is about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. We believe retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful, purposeful, and fulfilling season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. To listen now, search Retire Repurposed on your favorite podcast platform, Senior Resource, or Life Audio.